Okay, so assalamu alaikum, you guys can actually hear me, I guess. Okay, bismillah. So as I was saying, as I was not saying, I wasn't saying anything what I'm talking about. So let me just check if you guys can hear me clearly. Yep, you guys can. That's good. I was not saying, I wasn't saying anything. Okay, so just let me know what you guys think if you guys are here. I'm just gonna post about it. I'm gonna make a little post. Okay, I'm going live on YouTube. Okay, by the way, me going live on YouTube is after a lot of work. This is working out. Okay, I'm going live on YouTube. Okay, by the way, as in, so I'm just gonna make this. I'm just letting my followers know that I'm here discussing, and then we inshallah, God willing, we will go and we'll go live. We'll discuss on the topic at hand, what went down today, inshallah, everything in detail. Okay, let me just post this. This is a good idea. Link. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's good. Let's see if anyone join. Okay, a few people. Okay. Okay, so the topic at hand, what went down today. Okay, so there's this brother, Elias Mustafa, okay, on Facebook. He is a Shiite divine simplicit. Okay, so he believes in divine simplicity, and he made, so as many of you might know, that Muhammad Hijab had this live with Jordan Peterson, and I would say that he did represent Islam in a very good light and very respectfully, and Jordan Peterson was actually listening to it as well, and I'm happy with how the discussion went. But there were some people such as Elias Mustafa who were not. Okay, the discussion was interesting one, and I'm happy that it took place. But at the same time, there are some essential points that ought to be raised, such that in the future we can have better discussion with Western academics and present a rational Islamic narrative. Okay, so this guy is basically saying that Islam does not bring forth a rational Islamic narrative. By the way, Muhammad Hijab is doing a PhD, as far as I believe, in the contingency argument. Okay, so what he is basically saying that Muhammad Hijab was not able to present a rational narrative for the contingency argument and so on and so forth. That's beside the point, because I did end up having a debate with him. So in short, okay, so I'm just gonna, so the problem, how it arises, that's what I'm trying to show here. He basically said up, I hope we give a greater platform to people of Islamic philosophy such as Hossein Nasr, Sajjad Rizi, Hassan Naqvi, and Khalil Andani. I don't know how to pronounce his name. So these guys, okay, all Shia. As far as I don't know what Sajjad Rizi. I'm pretty sure Hassan Naqvi and Khalid Andani. So this guy, by the way, in the Facebook circle, he has a lot of following. I wouldn't say a lot of following, but a decent amount of following when compared to Facebook. So and people do, some people find him really irrational, some people find him very rational. So this video is out to those guys that find him very rational, and some people who might be on the edge. So I just want to tell people what this guy promotes. So for example, he said that that it would be better, basically, that people like Khalid Andani represent Islam more than people like Muhammad Hijab. I just want to show what Khalid Andani believes, and inshallah, from there, it will be clear why I am completely against that. Okay.
Prophecy fits right into this model. The other thing is that in the actual scriptures, the Bible, the Quran, or whatever, the entity that speaks in the voice of God in this model, that entity often will not be like the absolute unconditioned reality does not actually speak in human language at all. It does not have any sort of emotion or anything like that. Whereas the divine voice in the Quran, in the Bible, will be either the universal intellect or the universal soul. A general thing that we find the Ismailis say is that in the Quran, when God speaks in first person singular, like I created humankind and jinn to worship me, for example, that I, or when God says to Moses in the burning bush, I am your Lord, and so take off your shoes, that is the speech of the universal soul. And there are other verses in the Quran where God is described in third person, so he will do so and so, right? Your Lord will do so and so. That refers to the universal intellect. Now, there are some places, a few places, not all, but there are a few places where when the Quran talks about God in the most transcendent language, that is referring to absolute, simple, unconditioned reality. The example of such a verse would be Surat al-Ikhlas, Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. That refers to God as unconditioned reality. But when God is described in the Quran with different names, that refers to the universal intellect and the universal soul. And when the divine voice of the Quran speaks with we.
Okay. So now this is why I'm completely against Khalid. Khalil. So Khalil believes in this divine simplicity, and he actually believes in a new Platonism. Elias doesn't exactly believe in the exact same thing, but he did support and promote this guy, Khalil, over Muhammad Hijab. So absolute, simple, conditioned reality. So this is God. Okay, this being right here, this is God. This being, these two are not really God. These being are contingent beings, or these being are not non-necessary beings. This is the only unconditioned necessary being. So this is the highest being possible, okay, or this is the highest being, highest necessary being, and these two are not really God, as in they're not ahad, they're not kulullahu ahad, as he himself mentioned. So these being right here, even though they're not really God, okay, the Quran calls them, according to him, creator and something like sustainer, or the whenever Quran talks about, as in when any speech of the Quran, any speech that is Quran is not, the literal speech is not from here, it is from here, okay, and that too is not speech, as in verbal Arabic. It's more like meaning and divine meaning and divine word, a divine message, which is then turned to verbal symbols and wordings by Prophet Muhammad himself. This is what he believes, and that is clear kufr, because we don't believe in this thing. Neither the Quran indicates in this thing. Quran just says that Qul Allahu ahad, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There's only one God. This being, does nowhere the Quran mentions this being, nowhere the Quran mentions this being or this entity. And by the way, the craziest thing is that this being, the God that he mentions, is not intellect. God and the intellect are completely separate things. God is not intellect. God is not conscious in a sense. So yeah, this is what he believes. Clear kufr, which Elias is promoting. So that being said, let's move on to what I said. Okay, so I said you want Shias, who make up 12% of the Muslim population, to represent Islam as a whole, especially mentioning Khalid Andani, who believes in divine simplicity and divine intellect and soul as separate beings, which is clear kufr. I was pretty up with him. Okay, then he said no, even Sunni Hamza Yusuf would be better than hijab. Okay, that's beside the point. The point is, you are literally saying that Khalil Andani's rational representation of Islam is superior to that of Neo-Salafism. Khalil, literally using the contingency dependency argument, tries to show that Allah has one attribute, and also uses conceptualist arguments to show that divine intellect is separate from God. This is clear kufr. Okay, then I'm saying that basically you are literally saying that Khalil's rational representation of Islam negates Allah's having specific attributes as Muslims believe, and he's basically saying that is more rational than Hijaz representation. Then I said either he has no understanding of what Islam presents, or his position is flawed. Then he said that logically disprove it rather than getting polemical. And I said I don't need to disprove it. I don't need to disprove it at all. I just need to show it's neither the premise and are not necessary, or the conclusion doesn't follow. That's all I need to do, right? So we did have a debate, a long debate. He invited me to a group of his, and we did have a debate of sorts. And this, I would say, the discussion was fruitful. The discussion for fit was fruitful, and but should I say that Walaikum Assalam Afiha Muhammad Ali, the discussion was for the most part fruitful, but would I agree that with him, or would I say that he has been disproven or something? I would say that I did not go there to disprove his position. All I did was show that his understanding is flawed, which I did do it to a certain degree. Of why I'm here, and I'll just make one claim. I'm saying that there are different opinions among philosophers, okay, when it comes to understanding of and the argument of what is the conclusion of the contingency argument, okay, such as Elias uses it to prove divine simplicity. I'm just saying that there are differences of opinion, and there are valid differences of opinion, okay, as in there are actual philosophical differences of understanding and the conclusion, and from that you shouldn't be, okay, or you can't say that this is what the truth is, or this is what is objectively true, or you shouldn't be saying this is what the Quran says, because once again, the whole discussion was from because I came here from Facebook, where Elias said that these Shia and Neoplatonism is objectively true, and that he can prove it. And all I'm saying that it's not objectively proven, because, well, there are different philosophical understanding of causality, dependency, contingency, necessity, and that's all the point I'm making us then. Okay, so as you clearly see, I here was representing a point that it's pretty clear what I was trying to say here, is that there are different ways of understanding the premises of what is contingency itself, what is necessity itself, and because he has a difference in understanding, and he agrees with it. He agrees with it to a certain extent. Okay, so he says that this is Elias's Facebook, by the way. Before you understanding the idea of external potential. Okay. Oh, sorry. Here. That is first definition of contingency. Definition of contingency that follows from the Western discourse is not entirely how we define it. So here he already agrees that there is a difference in definition, right? In Western definition, contingency can be defined as not being true in all possible worlds. Okay, right? So he already agrees with this, and so here you can see that he explains it for all contingent x. So then he adopts Avicenna's understanding of what is contingent, what is actual, what is necessary. So he believes things such as are necessary by themselves or necessary due to something else. Okay, so everything is basically necessary, but either by itself or either by something else. So let's see. To put it simply, either that exists necessarily, but God exists necessarily due to his own essence, and everything else exists necessarily because of a contingency upon God. So it is not necessary in it of itself. This is indeed a view of universal logical necessity and collapse of the modal framework of possible worlds. Yes, so this is where the thing is, that he's saying that this causes a modal collapse. A modal collapse would be, by definition, modal collapse is when everything becomes necessary. There are no possible worlds. There's only one possible world, and that is the necessary world, and that is the world, and that is the case. So this is what he believes. So as you can see, I said that there are different understanding of contingency and different philosophical understanding, and he agrees with it. But in the debate, it's almost as if he deters this point, doesn't address it properly.
Yes, no, brother.
That I'm defining when it comes to
No,
existence.
brother.
Elias,
Definitions can have a difference. I
yeah,
can't talk
Elias,
about the
I'll
concept.
explain.
Talk
You'll
about
understand.
the
You'll
concept.
understand. Yeah, you'll understand. Let me explain. Okay. So here he said that definitions do not have, do not do anything. You look at the content, and here, then why does he switch from one definition of necessary simply that we can exist and not exist, and our definition of necessary simply that which can exist and is not contingent. Okay, so this is his definition, and then he's at the same time he's saying that there can be different understanding of contingent, and it doesn't matter if they're different understanding. Look at the content. Basically, what his argument is trying to make is that the content remains the same. Let me explain. So the way that you put forward your argument, okay, the way that you put it forward, the disagreement is okay. So okay, who is he? This is some.
My argument proves that a wajib bizat exists.
Okay, so
no, brother.
Okay, you're basically asking if it's a sound argument.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I would say, and I'll need to critique it more. Okay, I don't think it follows. I don't know who Hasdan is. Okay.
Okay, then our next argument, next premise is the statement of existence of all existence. Rather than snap itself, but it is not. That's a logic that is impossible because non-existence is the negation of existence, right? So non-P, right? Non-P cannot imply P, right? Okay. So the statement of existence, right? The haqiqat al-wujud, it has to be the thing that substantiates existence. It has to be existence, right? Now the statement that existence exists is necessarily true, right? That's the simple that's the most basic thing that all of us agree with. Now the next thing, now for any existent, right, its statement of existence, the fact that it exists, right, it either depends upon something else, right? This statement either depends upon another statement to be true, right, or this statement is true in itself.
Okay, so his argument basically is that there are propositional statements, okay, or statement which are true by themselves or true due to something else. Okay, so true by themselves. I think I should write this down somewhere. Let me see if I can. Okay, so first one would be something like, first premise would be something like true by statements, or statements are true by themselves or by some other true statement. Okay, so the first premise would be statements are true either by the truth value, either they're true by themselves, so they're just true, okay, or they're true because or by some other true statement. So what he means by statement here is propositional statements, such as statements that describe reality. So if I say an apple exists, that's a proposition, or that apple exists, or I know that an apple exists. The propositional statement. Now this statement depends on something else, or is just true just by itself. So this is what he means. And then second premise is that existence exists. Okay, so existence exists. So what he means here is that something exists. Okay, so this is what his second premise was.
Right. Okay, right. If it depends upon another statement to be true. Okay, then our next argument, next premise is the statement of existence of all existence, right? The statement of existence of all existence cannot be true through another, right? Because that would mean the statement that existence exists through another, but that is impossible, right? So there is at least one existent about which the fact that it exists is true in itself, wajib bizat, right? Okay. And then
okay, so basically what he means here is that something, not everything that exists cannot be necessary by something else, because if everything that exists is necessary by something else, okay, that is not within this whole set, then that's not possible. This is what he basically
Therefore, I
concluded.
have given you an argument that proves that there is wajib bizat.
Okay, so this is a non secular right here. So everything that exists, okay, everything that exists cannot exist by necessity. They cannot exist due to something else. It cannot exist due to something else. Okay, so now let me just okay.
There is an existence
Mhm.
about which the statement of existence that it exists is necessary in itself.
Okay, so see, basically now from here he concluded it would be C. Okay, actually, there would be one more thing here. So C, from C1 and 2, he basically got that existence. Okay, existence exists, so there is at least one existence that exists by itself. Okay, and that everything that exists cannot exist due to something else. Okay, so C1 2, he concluded from these two, okay, that the statements are true by themselves or by some other true statement. Existence exists. Now this statement itself is true by itself or by some other statement. Okay, so this statement, okay, is true by something else, by something else, or by another true statement. This is what he does. And then the third premise would be everything that exists cannot exist due to something else, or everything that exists. So now the whole set of existence cannot exist necessary by some other existence, because the whole set would exist by some other existence, or would be necessary due to something else. But if everything that exists is in the set, then it cannot be necessary on something else, because then it's not necessary on something that actually exists. It's a bit complicated. Let me see if I can draw to help you guys understand. Okay, here you go. So what he's basically saying, that this is basically, so if everything exists, this is everything that exists in the circle. I'm bad at drawing. Okay, everything that exists, if everything that exists is necessary, let's say necessary by something else, okay, then this whole thing would be necessary by something else. Okay, this whole thing would be necessary by something else. Now if this whole thing is necessary by something else, but then what is it necessary by? Because it contains all the things that exist, so it cannot be necessary by something else, because there is no something else. There's nothing else outside it, so it cannot be necessary by something else. So this is so the conclusion that he reaches is this is an absurdity. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I know it gets complicated, but I'm trying to make sense to you guys. This was horrible. This drawing was horrible. Assalamu alaikum, by the way. Assalamu alaikum AM and Saeed. So yeah, this is what he was saying. Now let's see
That's the
what he
thing. Now I'm going to give you how it implies divine simplicity, right? So the necessity.
Okay, now you're saying that this implies divine simplicity. Let's see.
That I am talking about. It has to be absolutely simple. Why? Because if it has multiple ontological aspects about him, and if it is a real composite, then it is dependent upon its parts to be true, right? So the parts have to be true for the statement that it exists to be true. It's really simple. So now the necessary existence, by definition, the one that I have proven through this argument, has to be absolutely simple. It cannot have any parts.
Okay, so now basically he's saying that a being has to be simple. Okay, so he only has to have one attribute, such as simple. Simple basically means one attribute for the people who do not know. One attribute or no parts. Okay, so or no parts. Now here there are multiple issues. We'll get to that. Or no parts. Now here is in meteorology, we study that there are different meaning of what we mean by part and pieces. So that is really important what we mean here. Okay. If we need to describe what we mean by parts here. Okay, because if there are other definitions of parts here, then this argument wouldn't necessarily work. Okay. And he needs to also demonstrate why parts, if something has parts, then the being is necessary on the parts. He doesn't do that here. So there are certain issues here. Okay, first of all, he's using his understanding is of modal collapse, that everything is necessary. Okay, so either something is necessary or it is necessary by something else. There are no contingent being in that sense, or they are dependent. Okay, they're dependent beings. They're dependent being and they're dependent on something else. So let's say the necessary being is necessary, or the necessary being exists, and the world is also necessary. So whatever we are doing is necessary, but our actions or our existence is necessary due to something else. This is basically his argument. And so this necessary being can only have one attribute. Okay, can only have one attribute, and this attribute cannot be further divided, because if it is divided, then it will have different pieces or parts, and then the existence of that being would be would be dependent. Okay, so then that existence of that being would be necessary on those parts. So now this is basically the argument. Okay, let me see.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he says it right there. That's the argument. Okay, so here are a few fundamental issues, and I
get
completely.
Yeah, so now you have to question some premise. So now tell me which premise do you question?
Yes.
No.
So as I was saying, okay.
Now look at
First
this.
of all, the existence, the definition of existence that you're using.
No,
No,
there's
that-
no definition of existence. Existence is badihi.
Yeah, see, I get it.
So he's basically saying that there are no definitions of existence in philosophical terms. There are different understanding and definition of what we mean by existence, or being, or essence of being, or when you're talking about the necessary being, what does it mean that necessary being exists? So I'll get more
the
into that.
essence of existence. Okay.
No, I
But
didn't
whether-
use essence
No.
either.
Yeah.
I didn't use
No,
essence
see,
either.
I'm saying that if there are different understanding.
No,
okay.
there's no difference. Exactly.
Yes.
Whether I have
I'll explain. Maybe you'll understand. Okay. So what I'm saying is that if we say that God is not part that is not separable, or for example, my understanding is that if God has different attributes, but these
brother, we are
attributes.
not talking about your understanding right now. What I am saying
No,
right now is
yes.
that I have to. No, brother.
I
have
get
a
it.
simple
You have
question.
made
I have-
your
no, no.
argument, and it does follow that there is a necessary being. I agree with that.
Yes, and I am saying my argument is unquestionably true.
I'm saying that doesn't follow divine simplicity. Now let me.
No,
let
it
me-
follows. From my argument,
That's it.
I
That's
have
what I'm doing.
proven-
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
Why
but
doesn't?
I'm just trying to clear it out for the audience. From my argument, I have demonstrated that there exists a necessary existence that is basitul haqiqa. That is absolutely simple, right?
I wish I could
Because-
forward this.
Because the
It's taking a lot of time.
definition, by very definition, the necessary existence that I have proven, it cannot have a real distinction, because if it has a real distinction, then it depends upon that distinction to be true, right? From my very argument that of the necessary existence that I have presented, which if brother Dawa can refute, then he will refute. But from my very definition, the conclusion is that there exists something that is wajib bizat, that is necessary in itself. Now, brother Dawa, now what you have to do?
Yeah,
Now,
see,
first
see.
of all, tell me. Now, first of all, tell me. Do you agree that my argument proves that a wajib bizat exists?
Okay, so.
No,
but-
brother,
okay,
yes or
you're
no
basically
statement.
asking if it's a sound argument.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
Okay. So I would say, and I'll need to critique it more. Okay. I don't. Okay, so the reason that I was saying that I need to critique it more, basically, I was saying that is it a sound argument? Does the conclusion follow from his premises? Okay, and I was saying that it needs to be critiqued because his premises. Okay, I mean the premises, it does not follow, the conclusion does not follow from his premises, as in being divinely simple. Okay, does not follow from his premises, uh, or the necessary by itself, being exists necessary by itself, is also irrational, because basically his one of his premise was basically something, statements are true by themselves, uh, or true by something else. So okay, so statements are true by themselves or true by something else. Okay, so that's basically what his first premise was, and then second premise was existence exists is true by themselves or by some other true statement. Okay, and everything that exists cannot exist due to something else, so hence there has to be some being that is true by itself. Okay, so in first glance I wouldn't say there's a problem, but once again you need to understand what kind of contingency he's using. Okay, so let's dig on there. That there's a divine, a simple being.
No, brother. What I am asking
I'm saying
you.
it doesn't follow. I'm saying it doesn't follow.
Okay. So you are saying my argument doesn't prove that a wajib bizat exists.
Yeah, I'm saying it doesn't show that there's a divinely simple being, because. Okay.
So you are saying, okay. So a wajib.
Okay, so I was very clear that I was saying that a divinely simple being doesn't exist.
You are saying, okay. Now you go ahead and prove to me how my argument is flawed.
Okay, so all I need to do is show that it doesn't follow, right? So
yes.
I'm saying that the way that you're defining contingency and the way that I'm defining when it comes to existence.
No, brother. Definitions can have a difference. I can't talk about the concept.
I'll explain. You'll understand. You'll understand. Yeah, you'll understand. Let me explain. Okay, let me explain. So the way that you put forward your argument, okay, the way that you put it forward, the disagreement is on the point that if God has different attributes or different ontological distinctions, okay, such as God has knowledge, so you're saying that God, the existent, has to be simple, okay, because it cannot depend.
No. I have proven to you that a wajib bizat exists. We are not even talking about divine simplicity right now.
Okay, so he's saying that even though the whole discussion was on divine simplicity, he's saying he's basically talking about divine necessity, even though earlier he said that my argument proves divine simplicity, and that's where the whole discussion is, and I'm again and again trying to go back to it.
What I have proven to you is that a wajib bizat exists.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have proven to you. Now, what I did was I presented you an argument for a wajib bizat. Now, do you agree with this argument?
Necessary by itself.
Yes, right? Yes. A wajib bizat. What I have proven to you is an argument for the existence of something, of a reality about which, when I make the statement that it exists, the truth value of the statement does not depend upon the truth value of the statement that another reality exists.
Okay. So yeah, I understand, but I would say it doesn't follow. Okay, it doesn't follow. Why?
Okay, so you think I have not proven the existence of a wajib bizat? Is that your claim?
I would say that by this definition, that a truth value depends on another truth value, then it is contingent. I'm saying that the ontological status of that being is still.
I am asking you, have I proven the truth? Have I proven the existence
of it? I would say that yes, it does follow from there. Okay.
Yeah, and any real composite, it depends. Any real composite depends upon its parts to exist. It doesn't depend. It is not in itself. It doesn't exist in itself. It depends upon its parts.
This is where I disagree. I don't agree that
No, you
some.
cannot disagree with this, because yeah,
No,
because the thing
I
is,
can't.
the statement. No, that's exactly why I am trying to refer it to you, back to you. The very statement, right, that the composite exists, right?
Okay, so what happened is that I'm saying, for the sake of the argument, let's say it does, and let's say we do agree, and because the main, because I don't have a problem with this argument itself, the problem arises on divine simplicity. Okay, so how does he reach that conclusion from these premises? Because you see, there's a difference in how he's describing truth. Okay, the way that he reaches truth by these premises for a wajib zat or a necessary being by itself is very different to how he reaches it for the divinely simple being.
It depends upon the statement that the parts exist.
Okay, so the composite.
Simple. It's
Okay,
very
okay.
simple, brother.
Okay,
The,
I get it.
the statement. Yeah. Do you agree? Do you agree with this? The statement that composite exists, right, is dependent upon the statement that parts exist.
Is the truth value of the proposition or the
Can-
reality of its existence is that's the thing that I'm saying, that the reality of its existence is not
No, I am
dependent on the
saying-
part. That's the thing.
No, I'm saying the truth value.
See, this is where I disagree. If you guys could listen. So basically, the way that I define parts is different to him. Okay, and the way that I define this statement is also different to him. As in, no, sorry, not this statement. Rather, the way that I define contingency and necessity. I'm saying that something is necessary if it is true in all possible worlds. That is how I would see something that is necessary, and he would say that in all possible worlds, and this concept is not like rational or it's not real. So talking about all possible worlds is itself, not real or not way to justify. So because before this, I would say his understanding is that either something is necessary by itself or necessary by something else. That's just how reality is. Okay, so even in his own little understanding, where is it? For all contingent x, there exists a y, that the existential proposition of contingent x is implied by the existential proposition of y. So this thing is contingent, okay, by proposition of y. Note that we have not used the idea of possible worlds anywhere, and this is because we don't believe in the notion of possible worlds. This is a premise or an assumption in their understanding, that they reach this conclusion from this notion that they don't know possible world. Okay, so basically basically what possible worlds and not possible world is mean that something could not have been other way. So if someone says possible world, so some other possible world, that something could have been another way. The fact that he doesn't believe in a possible world is he basically saying that things could not have been any other way, or he doesn't believe that type of modal logic, or that using that type of reasoning. So this is one of the assumptions that he has on the table. This is where I was pointing him out. I was saying that you have another different understanding of contingency. If he doesn't agree with there are different possible worlds, then his conclusion is going to be completely different. Because my definition of necessary will be that something is necessary if it is necessary in all possible worlds. So like some philosophers, by this definition, would say that there is a possibility that different necessary being exist. Some might disagree to it. Okay, some might disagree to it, saying that no, even in this definition, there are multiple necessary beings cannot exist, and the reason they would give is similar to what the divine simplicists give. They say that if there are two necessary beings, there's something that differentiates them, and if something differentiates them, then this necessary being is not necessary because it's differentiated, or its existence of differentiation, I would say, is contingent on the other being. Okay, so it is different to the other being, and that is the thing it is contingent on. the thing, the attributes that make them different. So this is where even how people who propagators of the possible world arguments are use similar reasoning as divine simplicit, but at the same time this is just as one of the understanding, okay, which is different to their understanding. So if I say, because see, if I believe in possible worlds, okay, someone can hold a position that a necessary being. So let's say I do take a position of possible worlds. So things could have been some other way. Okay, so I do take this position and I say that let's say the necessary being exists. So there has to be something that exists necessarily, okay, by itself. So its explanation, okay, its explanation is not dependent, or let's say it exists in all possible worlds, okay, exists in all possible worlds, okay. This is what necessary mind my spelling. This is what necessary would mean, okay. Necessary exists in all possible worlds. So if this is what we mean by necessary, what is if this is what we mean by contingent, okay, if this is what we mean by necessary, something contingent would be does not exist in all possible worlds. So this is where it becomes different. Contingent would be that it does not exist in all possible worlds, or it could have failed to exist, I would say. Okay, so something that is contingent is one of the definition, I would say, in this understanding. Some contingent could be something that fails to exist, or that doesn't exist in all possible worlds, or it is possible that this contingent thing did not exist. If something that it is possible for it that it did not exist, then it is contingent. Okay, he does not agree with this. He says that there no such a thing does not exist. Okay, of such a being that could have failed to exist, because everything is necessary. Everything follows from the necessary will of the necessary being, but that's another point. So so this necessary, so there's a difference here. So if there's a difference here, okay, if there's a fundamental difference here, then there's a difference to how we conclude and what we mean by something that is necessary. Necessary being would be something that exists in all possible worlds, or something that couldn't have failed to exist. Okay, this necessary does not mean that it is made of. So something here could be made of parts or attributes. Okay, could be made of attribute, because let's say we say that there we use like something like the contingency argument. You say that's a necessary being exists. Thus we prove it. A necessary being exists. Okay, we say that a necessary being exists. That's it. Okay, we reach this conclusion. Now we can say what kind of attributes does this necessary being need to have. Then we can try to rationalize it, but even then, a similar argument, a divine simplicit, could make a similar argument. So the point being here is that, even if something is necessary, or necessary exists in all possible world, it could be made of attributes. This is what basically Muslims believe, and Muslims nowadays use this type of argument. They say that a necessary being, if it exists, then it doesn't need to exist in all. If a necessary being exists, he exists in all possible worlds, and hence, if it exists in all possible worlds, then it is necessary by definition. Okay, so like human beings, we are not necessary beings, we are contingent, because we could have failed to exist. Okay, simple as that. It's not very complicated. So by this definition, one of the other assumption is different, and the conclusion can be radically different from it. So it does not follow. Then another thing is that parts. Now what he basically is saying that, and the reason that I said that the essence the way that we describe attribute of being or attribute of existence, or something like attribute of existence or attribute of essence of God. Like, how are we defining that? Okay, what is God's existence? Like, that is something that is ghaib to us. We don't know. It can be radically different. Okay, so God's let's say God's attribute, the being of God is not dependent on his attributes. Okay, because they are abstract, or they are not concrete. Okay, they are not concrete attributes, such as God's knowledge. They are not something that is concrete. It's not like a shape, or it's not like a ball that is concrete existence. So this is one way of reasoning it. This is one way of reasoning it out of multiple ways of reasoning it. So you can already see that there are difference of understanding of, we can take of simple definitions that would lead to different conclusions. Okay, so and with all this, so this was his argument. Now this is one of the way to look at it. Just saying that how it doesn't follow is because we don't agree with no possible worlds. We do believe that some things could have been different. Okay, so when I say necessary, God could not have been without his attributes. This is how I define God as in existence. So God with his attributes is necessary. Simple as that. Okay, not too complicated. So because we believe in a being that necessary by definition is something that could not have been other way. So God by definition could not have been any other way. Okay, and God is the only being that could not have been any other way, and that includes his attributes. That is basically how we define it, and we can substantiate. And if we are using this terminology, then God can be with parts, without parts, with attributes, without attributes, and the being itself could be necessary. Okay, because a being could not have existed. For example, God could not have existed without knowledge, and we can use different arguments to substantiate this claim, such as the conceptual argument or the conceptual truth argument. So God couldn't have, the truth statements are necessary and they always exist, and if they're necessary and they always exist, they have to exist in a mind, and this mind has to be eternal as well, and that is identical to God, as in God's knowledge. So God's knowledge is eternal as well. So there are different ways. I don't completely agree with that. So there are different ways to look at this argument. But the main argument that I would want to make is that these guys, they don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has free will. I mean, there's a contradiction. There's an internal contradiction, and this is how we refute them. Okay, this is how we refute divine simplicity. This is a true. This is their basically belief that God or Allah has free will, either in relation to others, but he does have free will. Okay, some sort of free will. Okay, and then their second statement is that his free will is either identical or relational. Okay, so his free will is identical or relational. So basically relational means that to us it is free will. Okay, so if that is the case, okay, either it is to us but in reality it's not, or in reality it's just one essence but to us it looks different. Okay, so for example, God's essence, okay, or okay, God essence. Okay, so God has an essence, has essence. God has free will, God is essence. So these two attributes will become identical. If these two are identical, then we just reach the conclusion that if these two are identical, then this is necessary and this is necessary. So God's will and action, okay, so God's will and action become necessary because they're identical to his action, which they do hold. They do hold that God's will is necessary. So if God's will is necessary and it could not have been any other way, then this is not true free will. This is not what the Quran says. Quran literally explicitly makes it clear that God could have done things the other way. This is what the clear reading of the Quran and the Sunnah suggests, and this is clear. I mean, it's a kufri statement. As simple as that. It's a kufri statement. So, this is one bit of it, and there was a funny thing that happened in the end.
The statement
I just wanna
that
point that out.
Why would we even care?
Brother.
Okay, so here the funny. I just wanna, because there's in the end there's something that funny that happened. I just wanna point that out.
Okay, go ahead. And what are the rules of tafsir?
Not this point.
verse
Not this
that-
point.
Bro, we don't follow your rules. That's the thing.
What are your rules of tafsir? What are your
I was
rules?
being ganged here 128.
Oh, tell me.
I was-
Give me a 5-6 rules.
There were
basic
8.
rules.
No,
We
yeah,
can't
yeah.
discuss anything unless we establish what epistemology is. Because
No,
we
wait,
shouldn't
hold
have,
up.
like, brother, like,
Elias
no
is doing
disrespect to you,
tafsir.
brother Dawa, no disrespect to you, but Elias, we shouldn't have engaged with him in divine simplicity without clarifying epistemology in the first place. Why did you do that?
Epistemology.
You see the problem here. He thinks he can understand naql without aql.
Okay, so what they're understanding here is that aql, okay, basically rationality comes before the scriptures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, a very Mu'tazili kind of understanding, and Shia do hold this understanding. Now, as Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we believe that naql is before aql, or naql is superior to aql.
That's what he thinks. Without
The
aql,
Quran-
brother, you can't even walk without aql. You can't even.
Okay, so here I was pointing out that we have fitrah, and fitrah can just reach us through the truth without us, actually trying to rationalize. So fitrah, basically we have innate disposition and innate knowledge that is true because God has put these truth in us. Basically, they are axiomatic. Okay,
even do anything. Do you really believe that without your brain giving signals to your body, you can do anything?
Okay, so like I said, fitrah, you can know
So
things
so
are
what?
true
So what?
just
So
based
that
on
proves,
fitrah. Heather,
so
you asked me a
means
question.
that-
Now let me answer, bro.
brother, you've been given enough time to answer. You're just going around.
Then why
circles.
then why are you asking me a question if you're not going to let
I'm
me
trying
answer?
to
It's
make you
very
understand.
childish.
I'm trying to make you understand that
Then-
aql always comes before anything. You can't do anything. You can't even like wake up from bed without aql.
Can you
You
prove
can't
your
even wake
aql?
up
Can
from
you
your bed.
can
can't
you
even wake-
prove?
brother,
Hold up.
listen to me.
Can you prove
Brother,
your
listen to
aql
me.
by your
You
aql?
can't even wake up from bed without using aql.
Can
You
you
see,
prove
this
your
is-
aql
this
by
Without
your
your
aql?
brain giving
Question,
signals to your
Wait,
body,
can
you
you
can't
use
even
can
open
you
your eyes.
can you prove aql by using aql?
Wait, brother. Have you studied Badihiyat Awwaliya?
Wait, hold up.
No, you
I'm
haven't.
asking
That's
Heather
why
a
you're
question.
asking this question.
Heather. No, wait, Heather.
Aql is aql
No,
is
can you
something
prove
that's
aql?
evident. It's
Can you
axiomatic.
prove
axiomatic.
aql? Can you prove it's axiomatic, right? Exactly.
Yes, it's
It's-
from the first principle.
You're
So
you're
what's your
appealing to
problem?
axiom. You're appealing to
I'm not
axiom.
appealing to axioms. The
Okay.
axioms are
I no. So can you prove this axiom by aql?
Bro, if I start
Oh
proving
my
it, it
God,
stops
bro,
being an
like,
axiom. That's the
Seriously,
entire
this
thing.
is
That's the
brother, like,
point.
No disrespect to you, brother.
That's the
Dawa,
point.
but
You're
since
appealing
I'm
to
trying to
axiom.
You haven't
explain,
studied the
You're-
basics. You
That's
don't even know
fitrah.
what
You're
Badihiyat
talking about
Awwaliya are.
axioms. That's
brother,
fitrah.
you're
That's the
you're
point.
brother. Oh my
That's
God.
the point. I'm saying that fitrah are the
Seriously, my
axioms.
God.
These axioms of logic are fitrah.
We believe
These
that
axioms
we're
of
just-
rationality
everyone
are fitrah.
please
These
stop.
axioms of
Let-
morality
let-
is fitrah.
This is
These
where
axioms
stop.
this is where I was getting gagged.
No, we
are
go over
gonna
each
be
other.
true. The axiom about this, you said this is our axiom. You cannot prove it by aql. That's the point. There's something that you cannot prove by aql, which are the axioms. I'm saying these axioms
bhai.
are fitrah.
Usko- Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
then we just using different
Then you agree
words.
with me. You're saying fitrah comes
using-
before aql. Ya
No, no,
jahilun.
no. Bro, we're using
Ya Allah. But most of these guys were respectful. I would give credit to Elias. Elias was respectful for most of the part, except for one of their guys. Let me just hold up. Hasnan Naqwi. I don't know who he is. These guys thought he was some rational guy. He was,
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do. Is that
Is an existent.
okay? That's not the case, right? That's not the case, right? Let's see. No problem with that.
Hey,
Relax.
listen to me now.
Hassan,
Listen to
relax.
me. Listen to me.
You're
If
so bad.
something
Relax,
exists,
bro. Be respectful. You're Muslim.
by the way, this is Hasnan Naqwi. He got really enraged when I was pointing out. So basically, I was making the argument that these fitrah, they're axiomatic. You cannot prove they're axioms. You just believe them. Okay, there are axioms of such as logic. You just believe them. You cannot objectively prove them by using rationality, and then from here saying that you are objectively proving it. Okay, you're objectively proving something based on these axioms, such as the attributes of God. You shouldn't be saying that you're proving, but you should be using some different terminology, such as you're trying to rationalize it. Okay, this is what the point of view I was going. Something very something like Plantinga. He says that you cannot prove it. You can try to rationalize it. Once again, there are differences of opinion. So I was saying that even if these laws of logic, can you prove them, or are they fitrah? This guy Hassan Naqvi, he got really enraged. By the way, he's some big philosopher or something. I don't know who he is. Allah, I don't know who he is. So this is I don't know if he's a big philosopher or something. Then I would have expected better behavior on his end.
You're Muslim, relax.
Hey, Mr. A-Level, let Hasnain talk, Mr. A-Level. Respect your
Do you
elders.
accept that?
Wait, I am
Do you
trying to.
accept
I'm
that?
trying to.
I just
Wait,
asked
no, if
you
you
a
relax,
question.
if
Something
Hasnan, if you
exists,
relax,
it is
I'll listen to you.
cause or uncause. Do you accept that or not?
Listen, Hasnan.
I just
Be
asked you a
respectful.
question. Just
Hasnan, be
answer the
respectful.
question. I need a yes or no
Hasnan.
answer. If
Hasnan,
something
be
exists, it is
respectful.
either cause or
Hasnan, be
uncause. Yes or
respectful,
no?
bro. Hasnan, be respectful.
Yes or no?
Hasnan, just be respectful. I answer you, bro.
That is not
Come
the answer to my question. If
Hasnan,
something
relax,
exists,
bro.
it is
Are you
either cause
Muslim?
or
Adab.
uncause. Yes or
Hasnan,
no?
bro. Hasnan, relax. Wallah, I answer you, bro.
I am relaxed.
Can we be
You're the only
respectful?
one who's frustrated over here. You're the only one who has problems with laws of logic and self-evident rational axioms. I'm
I
simply
love
asking
this.
you a simple
Hasnan.
question. If something
Hasnan.
exists, it is either cause
See,
or
now
uncause.
you're
Do you accept that? And is there a
Now you're
third
being-
category as
Yeah,
well?
now you're being a bit more civil. Okay, see, the point here
No, I
is
don't
that-
get an answer. Yes or no?
I am
I
answering
don't
you.
want a narrative explanation. Yes or no?
Hasnan, you're asking me a yes or no question. I'm gonna
That
explain
is
my
not.
answer.
That is
Oh,
not
you
the
guys,
answer
hold
to
up.
my
You guys have started a discussion here. Oh yeah, okay, so I was trying to show that sometimes they end up being uncivil. So yeah, you guys are having a discussion like you can prove the agent's intellect with the intellect because it is outside the agent. This. Why is he having a midlife crisis? I have no idea why he's having a midlife crisis. He's probably a nice guy in real life, but he was having a midlife crisis. Yeah, it did sound like that, unfortunately. May Allah guide him. Okay, so can you prove aql over? Can you prove aql with the aql? No, I would say that you can't, bro. Because how can you prove something by itself? So basically, when talking about aql, we're talking about everything that encompasses aql. So rules of logic, and methods of reasoning, everything, and that's aql. Can you prove aql? Okay, by these rules of logic. Okay, so that's circular reasoning 101. Okay, let me just. I'm so bad with paint. Let me just maybe inshallah I can help you guys understand a bit. Okay, so rules of logic. This is, let's say, this is aql, aql. Okay, I'm so bad with this. This is aql. Okay, this is aql. Okay, and this is, and now this is the question, like, can you prove aql? Okay, by aql. Can you prove aql by aql? So the way that you are going to go about this is you're going to use aql. Okay, you're going to use aql to prove aql. Okay, but the thing is that this is the exact thing that we are questioning. So how are you going to prove something that is already in question? We are questioning if you can prove aql, because we are saying that if you can prove aql, basically we are asking for evidence for aql, and you are saying that then you're using aql to prove aql, then you're already assuming that aql is proven. But that's exactly the question that we're asking. So it's similar to any other type of circular reasoning. Yeah, Al-Razi, he believed aql over naql. sure what he believed. I don't know if he believed in, aql comes over. I don't believe he said that aql can prove aql though. Al-Farabi and Sinan prove aql. Yeah, bro. See, my position is very simple when it comes to rationality and aql. It just derived from the Quran and Sunnah. That is the only way that I try to go with it. The axioms or the first principles are fitri. They are proven to you, you can say, or you just know them by fitrah. So you just know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. You know that 2 + 2 = 4, or you know that what did my teacher say? My teacher told me that he gave me the example of qul and juz, okay, right? So the qul is like the complete set and the juz is the part of the set, okay? So the juz is always smaller than the qul, okay? This you don't need to prove it, okay? You don't need to demonstrate or put in an argument. You already know this. You already know this principle, or causal principle. This is also something that he said, it's innate. So these are first principles. These are innate. These are self-evident, okay? We know these, but you cannot prove these, okay? Yeah, you cannot prove these. What you can do, okay? And yeah, the amazing thing that my teacher told me is that you cannot prove these, but you can remind people of these. Because so basically, if someone says that he doubts existence, or he says that he does not agree with some of the first principles, such as he does not agree with the causal principle, or he does not agree that he exists, or some absurd claim, you cannot prove to him that he exists, because that's what he's questioning. So you cannot prove to him he exists by showing him something that exists, okay? Because that's what he's basically questioning, if do things exist, right? So what my teacher basically said is that at that point you are supposed to remind, because reminding or kashf is way more effective. So, and the Quran does this as well. Quran does this again and again and again. The Quran uses reminder. The Quranic method of substantiating itself mainly is by reminding people, okay? That's why it's always Prophet Muhammad was sent as a reminder, and Prophet Muhammad was sent as a reminder, and the Quran says ponder, and so that the people of understanding will remember, stuff like that. So it is very mainly about remembering and waking up your fitrah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already put things in you which will pull you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the truth, okay? So, and by the way, by innate disposition, one more thing about this divine simplicity argument, by fitrah we know things could have been other way. That's just our fitrah. Our fitrah, innate disposition, or the axiom that we have, is that things could have been some other way. So that, once again, that also refutes this divine simplicity argument that this guy Muhammad Elias was putting forward. Okay, so bro, this is the same question. Okay, so is the Kalam cosmological argument heretical? Depends on how someone puts it forward. I wouldn't say it's heretical. Some people have put it forward, making it kind of heretical. Some people have suggested that the Kalam cosmological argument necessitate there be a change in God, or change within God. So that view would be heretical in Sunni Islam. So if God in his essence changes, then that would be heretical. Yeah. But the way that most main term, even Western philosophers use it, I wouldn't say it's heretical. The only problem would arise if someone would say something as if, would make active claim about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not affirmed himself. So it would be the same problem, that you should not be using your aqal, to understand the kafiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you have never experienced Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so you don't know how contingency is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't know how necessity is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You just don't know. You don't know how things relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or how the howness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot, try to rationalize about it, because the way that you know how something is either innately, or or basically the only way that you can know how something is either you know it by fitrah, or you know it by experience, or you know it by testimony. Okay, you don't know the kafiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by fitrah. Okay, the kafiyah is in howness. Okay, so how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's free will work? You don't know this by fitrah and other things. So, and you don't know the howness about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge, and you're not experienced Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, of course, and there's no testimony about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well either. So all of this concludes that finding out attributes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by using purely logic, okay, and concluding and trying to prove by using completely logic is, yes, heretical. Okay, and also, yeah, any other questions, bro? And you can prove the intellect by the fact that intelligible objects exist. You can prove the intellect by the fact that intangible objects exist. No, I don't think that proves intellect. Depends on and also, like, what do you mean by intellect here? I don't see it. Oh, wait, hold on. Can I pull this up? No, I cannot. It was okay. So I might end it. How long have I been going for? Stream 66 minutes. Okay, so an hour almost. It was good. I think that was good stream. Inshallah. Okay, good talking to you guys. Ma salama. How do I end this? How do I end this? How? What? I don't get it. I'm getting. Oh yeah, actually I missed my class. Oh damn. Inshallah tomorrow. I'm gonna take my class. I'm gonna take the recording. Brother, I don't know what you mean by how. Inshallah, yeah, DM me on Instagram. Okay. Inshallah, I'll try to send you a voice mail or something. Then we're gonna. Well then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.